This is the IELTS listening test, created and published by IELTSonlinetests.com 2025. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 2 minutes to check your answer. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1. You will hear Jasmine calls about a job, learns about the role, hours, pay, and application process, and decides to apply after hearing the details. First, you'll have some time to look at questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10.
Good morning, Sunridge Summer Camp. This is Anna speaking. How may I assist you?
Hi there. I'm calling to register my son for your summer program. I saw the 2-week camp on your website and thought it'd be a great experience for him.
Lovely. I'll just take a few details to get things started. What's your son's name, please?
His name is Lucas Turner.
Thanks. Now, could you tell me his age?
He just turned 13 last month, but the website says the age range is 9 to 12. Is that a problem?
Actually, 13 is just outside the regular range, but if he turned 13 recently, we can still accept him. So I'll put down 12 years old. And which session would you like him to attend?
We were looking at the one starting July 3rd, running for 2 weeks. And which session would you like him to attend?
We were looking at the one starting July 3rd, running for 2 weeks.
So, from July 3rd to 17th, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Can I have your home address for our records?
Sure, it's 21 Maple Grove, Ashbury. That's Ashbury.
Maple Grove, Ashbury. Got it. And what's the best phone number to reach you?
My mobile is 07984657392. Or we have a home number too. Wait, never mind, the mobile's better.
Any medical or dietary issues we should be aware of?
He's vegetarian, but that's more of a preference. The only real concern is his peanut allergy. It's not extremely severe, but we do carry an EpiPen just in case.
Duly noted. Now, we offer a range of activities. Are there any that Lucas is particularly interested in?
Oh, he loves all kinds of outdoor stuff. He's not really into crafts or drama, but he's especially keen on swimming and archery.
We've got both of those. Has he attended an overnight camp before?
No, he hasn't. He's done day camps back home in York, but this will be his first time staying away from home overnight.
Thanks. We'll make sure he's placed in a beginner group. Will Lucas bring his own sleeping bag?
I thought he had one, but it turns out it's too small, so we'll need to borrow one from the camp if that's possible.
Absolutely. We have spares for hire. There's a small charge which I'll include in the invoice. And how will Lucas get to the camp?
Originally, we were going to send him by coach, but since we'll be in the area anyway, we've decided to drop him off by car on the morning of the 3rd.
All right. Lastly, how would you like to handle payment?
I'd rather not give card details over the phone. Do you take checks?
We no longer accept checks, I'm afraid, but you can pay online through our website. It's very secure.
That works. I'll do that later today.
Perfect. Once payment is made, you'll receive a confirmation email with all the details. Let us know if anything changes.
Will do. Thanks for all your help.
That is the end of part 1. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 1. Now turn to part 2. Part 2. You will hear the speaker discusses how to support children in developing resilience by managing risks, fostering independence, and encouraging problem solving. First, you'll have some time to look at questions 11 to 13. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 13.
Today, I'm going to talk about the issue of encouraging children to learn about risk. At the moment, a lot of children are not allowed to play outside by themselves. So, unsurprisingly, there are concerns about how this is affecting them. One of the main reasons why parents are reluctant to let their children play outside is fear of crime. They worry that their children might be abducted or harmed in some way by a stranger. But research shows that the chances of a child being abducted are very low. In fact, they are far more likely to be injured in a car accident than to be abducted. There are also concerns about the risk of accidents. In recent years, playgrounds have been made much safer than they were in the past, and this has been done in response to claims for compensation when children have been injured. But this has had an unexpected result. While children can still have accidents in playgrounds, they are less likely to be injured than they were in the past. But, in fact, they are more likely to have accidents elsewhere because they have had fewer opportunities to learn how to take risks. Another concern is about the risk of bullying. Parents worry that their children will be hurt by other children, but, again, if children are kept at home, they won't learn how to deal with bullies. They need to be able to develop their own strategies for coping with bullies, and they can only do that if they are allowed to play with other children. So, what can parents do to help children to develop resilience? One thing that parents can do is to avoid overreacting to minor injuries. If a child falls over and gets a cut on his leg, for example, the parent can help by staying calm and reassuring the child that it's only a small cut and it will soon get better. Parents can also encourage children to be more independent. For example, they could let them walk to school by themselves or go to the shops on their own. This will help them to develop confidence and learn how to take responsibility for themselves.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you'll have some time to look at questions 14 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 14 to 20.
It's also important for children to learn how to manage risks. Parents can help by encouraging them to think about the risks involved in different activities and to decide for themselves whether or not they want to take those risks. For example, if a child wants to climb a tree, the parent can help by asking questions like, "How high do you think you can climb?" And "What's the worst thing that could happen if you fall?" This will help the child to think about the risks involved and to make an informed decision. Another way that parents can help is by encouraging children to solve their own problems. For example, if a child is having trouble with a friend, the parent can help by asking questions like, "What do you think you could do to make things better?" And "How do you think your friend feels about the situation?" This will help the child to think about the problem from different angles and to come up with a solution. Finally, parents can help by encouraging children to take part in activities that involve a certain amount of risk. For example, they could encourage them to join a sports team or to take up a hobby like rock climbing or skiing. These activities will help children to develop confidence and learn how to take risks in a controlled environment. So, in conclusion, it's important for children to learn about risk, and parents can help by encouraging them to be more independent, to manage risks, to solve their own problems, and to take part in activities that involve a certain amount of risk. By doing this, they will help their children to develop resilience and to become more confident and independent adults.
That is the end of part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 2. Now turn to part 3. Part 3. You will hear Jack and Emma discuss the benefits of cycling for health, local council's support for cyclists, and the challenges of cycling in cities, including vehicle emissions and road safety. First, you'll have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi Jack, how was your weekend?
Oh, great. Thanks, Emma. I actually went cycling again. To be honest, I'm getting a bit obsessed with it.
Oh, I remember you mentioned thinking about buying a bike. Did you get one then?
Yes, I did. I bought a really nice one. I was looking at a few different types, but I ended up getting a mountain bike. I figured I'd be able to ride it in more places than a road bike.
That's true, isn't it? So, where did you go?
I went to the forest. There are some excellent paths there that are just right for mountain biking. It's really good exercise, and it's great to be out in the fresh air instead of at the gym, you know?
I know exactly what you mean. I'd like to try cycling, but I'm not sure it's for me. I think I'd be a bit scared of riding on the roads.
Well, I was too, but it's fine once you get used to it. You really should try it. It's a fantastic way to keep fit, and you can explore so many different places. I've been all over the city on my bike.
I've heard cycling is incredibly beneficial. It's better than running because it doesn't put stress on your joints.
Exactly. And it's better than driving because you don't have to sit in traffic jams. It's a lot quicker than walking, and you can reach places you can't get to on public transport.
And it's good for the environment too, isn't it?
Yes, it's very environmentally friendly. So why don't you give it a go? You can borrow my bike if you like.
I might just do that. Thanks. I'll let you know.
I honestly think more people should cycle. It would be good for the country's health overall.
That's very true. I read somewhere that people who cycle to work are fitter and healthier than those who don't.
Yes, I read that too. I think the government should definitely encourage more people to cycle instead of driving.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you'll have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
I think they do, actually. I read that some local councils have been building cycle lanes to encourage people to ride their bikes.
Yes, that's right. I've been on some of those new cycle lanes myself.
And some companies are encouraging their employees to cycle to work. They're giving them free bikes or paying for bike repairs, that sort of thing.
Yes, I've heard about that, and some local councils are even offering free cycling lessons to help people who are nervous about riding on the roads.
Good idea. I think I definitely need some lessons.
And there are also cycle clubs that organize group rides. I've been on a couple of those. It's a really good way to meet people.
Yes, I can imagine. It's probably more fun than cycling on your own, I suppose.
Yes, it is. And you feel a lot safer when you're in a group.
I think I'd be afraid of breathing in all the fumes from the traffic, though.
Yes, that is a problem, unfortunately. According to a recent report, vehicle emissions are the main cause of air pollution in cities, and that's a big concern for cyclists. I've started wearing a mask when I cycle in the city. It's not very comfortable, but I think it helps.
I've seen people wearing those masks. They look quite strange, but I suppose it's better than breathing in all those dangerous fumes.
Yes, I think so. And another problem is that the roads are in such bad condition in some places. There are so many potholes, and some roads are so uneven. It's quite dangerous sometimes.
Yes, I've heard that. I think it's really important to wear a helmet to protect your head if you fall off your bike.
Yes, I always wear a helmet, and I wear bright clothing so that drivers can see me. I think that's absolutely crucial.
Yes, I agree. So, where are you going to cycle next weekend?
I'm not sure, actually. I might go to the forest again, or I might try somewhere new. I'd really like to find a group of cyclists to go with.
Yes, You should definitely do that. I'll have a look online to see if there are any groups in this area.
Good idea. I'll do that too.
That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 4. Now turn to part 4. Part 4. You will hear the talk covers the history of American film, highlighting silent films, the emergence of sound films, the golden age of Hollywood, the impact of television, and the rise of independent films. First, you'll have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. In this final week of our series on the history of film, we'll be exploring the rise of colour and sound in cinema, focusing on a key period known as the Golden Age of Hollywood, which lasted from around 1917 to the end of the 1930s. This era truly began in 1917 with the development of silent films. A major early example was The Birth of a Nation, directed by D.W. Griffith. It was a huge success at the time, though now it's widely criticised for its offensive and racist content. During this silent film period, movies were shown in black and white and relied on written captions to show dialogue. Live music, often played by a pianist or small orchestra, helped add emotion and atmosphere. Because there was no spoken dialogue, actors had to rely on dramatic facial expressions and exaggerated movements to tell the story. As the popularity of cinema grew, several major studios were founded in Hollywood. This transformed the small California town into the center of the film world. Stars like Charlie Chaplin, famous for his comic roles, and Mary Pickford, known as America's sweetheart, became international icons. These actors helped draw massive audiences, and the studios quickly became powerful businesses. Major companies like Paramount, MGM, and Warner Brothers controlled nearly every part of the film process, from hiring actors to showing films in their own cinemas. This structure became known as the studio system. A major turning point came in 1927 with the release of The Jazz Singer. This was the first successful film to include synchronized sound and spoken dialogue. It marked the beginning of a new era, the talkies. The impact was enormous. Audiences were amazed, and soon all major studios began producing sound films. However, the shift wasn't easy. Some silent film stars struggled to adapt because their voices didn't suit the new technology, or their acting style didn't work with spoken dialogue. Studios also had to invest large sums of money in new recording equipment and redesign their sets to prevent sound problems. Despite the economic difficulties of the 1930s, including the Great Depression, Hollywood continued to produce a wide variety of films. People had less money, but they still went to the cinema to escape from daily life. Studios made musicals, romantic comedies, action films, and dramas, many of which are still popular today. These films gave audiences hope, glamour, and fantasy in difficult times. The 1930s also brought new technology, particularly in colour. While colour films had existed in some form for years, the process was expensive and difficult. That began to change with the introduction of Technicolor, which allowed for brighter, more stable colours. A major breakthrough came in 1937 with Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first full-length animated feature. It was a huge success and showed that animation could be both artistically impressive and commercially viable. By 1939, several important films were released that are now considered classics, such as Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. Both were made in colour and are often seen as the peak of Hollywood's golden age. But 1939 also marked the beginning of World War II, which had a major effect on the film industry. Many actors and directors joined the war effort, and studios began making propaganda films to support national morale. After the war, the industry faced new challenges. One of these was the rise of television in the 1950s. For the first time, people could be entertained at home for free, which led to a drop in cinema attendance. In response, studios tried to bring audiences back with new innovations like widescreen formats and 3D films. Although these methods had mixed success, they showed how the film industry had to keep evolving to stay relevant. While the golden age technically ended in the 1940s, its influence continues to shape modern cinema. The foundations built during those early decades, from storytelling techniques to studio production, still affect how movies are made today. So, in summary, the early 20th century was a time of dramatic change in film. From silent black and white movies to full-colour sound films, the industry grew rapidly in both technology and storytelling. It adapted to new challenges and found ways to continue entertaining audiences around the world. Next week, we'll look at the rise of independent cinema and how filmmakers outside the big studios began to reshape the industry.
That is the end of part 4. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 4. That's the end of the listening test. You will now have 2 minutes to check your answers.